In a letter I received from Baba through a roach, it said, "Baba accepts your love." And this was very important for me because I had feelings of rejection and resentment against the whole world, and to be accepted by Baba was real encouragement. It was a real blessing. And also it said that Baba has a soft corner in his heart for you. And whether this was an exaggeration or not, it was very encouraging to me, because it's quite a statement to be in God's heart. In a cable from Baba, it said, "Love," and signed Baba. Then another cable came the next day saying the same thing. That shows how Baba really cares for us, and he meant by that, love me more and more. Love Baba, love Baba. That was the message. And another cable, Baba said, "My love with you always." Baba's love is not just love, it's guidance, it's protection. And that has always been the case. I know that, and when I get into an uncomfortable situation, I don't become fearful and just worry about it. I just try to practice, don't worry, be happy. Baba said that our life is by God's grace. And I found that is true in relation to myself and Baba. These cables and letters and things arriving from India, people arriving from India, and other visitors that came to see me were just in the nick of time, and circumstances became just impossible and desperate. And here comes the letter. And things change. I realized that these material things brought Baba's grace. And it was incredible, but it is true. However, now I don't get many of those, but still it is valid, because whatever contact I have with Baba lovers, that is Baba's grace. I always get an installment of love from all these experiences, a letter, so on. And these things should not be taken for granted. Love is the last thing to be taken for granted. I think Baba said that, or anyway, he expressed it in different words, perhaps. Baba told me in 1956, remember, no money involvement and no sex involvement. I had offered Baba originally, when I met him, to remain celibate or marry, depending on what he would decide, and I was to stay celibate, evidently. And Baba warned me, and his warning was very helpful, because situations come up in life, and you need, one is tested. And once Baba gives you an order, then disobedience is like fire, dangerous. And when Baba was leaving, in 56, this was from San Francisco, he put up a fist. He wasn't giving any messages, but he put up a fist for me. And that meant control yourself and resist temptation. And the temptations have come up. And however, with Baba's love and grace, all these things have been safely bypassed. But sex and money and ego, these are concentrated forms of Maya. And one should not take them lightly. At the time Baba put up his fist, I laughed, because I thought, well, I'm strong enough to resist these things. But I didn't realize what would happen. And this very day, right now, I'm going through experiences of having to control myself. Control talk, for instance. Control the mind from wandering, being distracted. In 1954, we were all introduced to Baba at Meherabad, and then when I had a personal interview with Baba, I had to wait, and Baba waited, what seemed a long time, and finally he had sent for John Bass, who was the head of the group in New York, and Baba wanted me to know that he was the head, because I thought maybe the Winterfelds were. And he asked John Bass, "Where were you?" And John Bass said, "I was sleeping." While Baba was there, John Bass was taking a nap. This is very fantastic. And then when he had introduced me, Baba said, "Go back to sleep." Now that was he put up his hand like that, and that was very wonderful, because Baba is not one of those masters who gets angry because you hurt his pride or something. He lets you be yourself. This man liked to take a nap in the afternoon, and he just took a nap. But there was another significance to that, and that was Baba was blessing me to go back to sleep after getting up at night to say my prayers, which took several hours. Then I thought, when I started doing that, I thought maybe Baba wanted me to stay up. If I get up at 4 o'clock, then I should stay up for the rest of the time, then go back to sleep. But then at that time, in 54, Baba already knew that I was supposed to do that, and so he said, "Go back to sleep." And then about 8 years later, I started to practice this thing. And in fact, in 1962, Baba said to me, through Irwin said to me, "Dana, Baba wants you to get up." I was prostrating myself at Baba's feet, and I was staying there too long. And so what I do now is I get up at midnight to say the prayers, and then I touch the pictures and worship, and then again early in the morning around 4 or 5, and I go back to sleep. Baba actually wanted me to get up only once, but then I decided later on I'll please Baba, and I'll get up also at midnight. And that very night, Baba came to me in a dream and embraced me, and he said my name twice. He was quite pleased by that. And I have continued that discipline. I may lack love, but I don't want to fall down on the things that I can do. I can't afford to do that, to fall down. Not at this time. And Baba wrote to me also, Baba does not want his Dana. He was speaking to me in the third person. He wanted me to, because I had been quite disturbed, so he was reassuring me. His Dana to, Baba's not wanting his Dana to worry about these things which don't mean anything in the least. Most things, memories of people, of things and so on, that bother people, have no meaning. They should be forgotten. And then having Baba's love, which is protection, having Baba's guidance, and having Baba's assurances about the future, all will come out well. I need not worry so much, or be concerned or disturbed or confused or anything like that. In 1956, Baba said to me, "Do you diet? Why do you diet? Why don't you eat cooked food?" I was eating raw food. And what I didn't realize was that my system did not assimilate the minerals from this raw food, didn't break them down. So Baba wanted me to eat cooked food. So I had his blessing, and I changed over from the completely cooked food, raw diet, to completely cooked. Everything I eat now is cooked. I don't eat raw food at all. And that's more or less impossible. I resisted it for a while, but it has worked out very nicely for the best. Now, that shows that when you have a master, you have to jettison a lot of your ideas about what's right and what's wrong. You cannot be dogmatic. You got to follow the master's suggestion. Then, at the same time, well, Baba repeated it. Ruth said, "Why do you die?" Baba said, "No. Do you die? Why do you die?" Now, the reason for that was Baba often repeated things, to me at least. I think he did that to other people, to strengthen. To some people, he repeated 3 times. For instance, to Edwin Luck, he said, "I am God. I am God in human form." He said that 3 times. "Love is surrender." He said that 3 times. And to me, he would say it twice. And that was not for psychology. Baba was evidently imprinting that on the subtle sphere of the mind, and also working on you at the same time. At the same time, Baba pulled me over as I shook hands with him, where we were sitting, and I fell over him, and I tried not to fall on him, but I almost did. And Baba was showing me that I think he said, "You see, you have no energy." And he was trying to convince me that despite eating a great deal of raw food, I didn't have energy. And there was Marianne Florsheim, whom Baba called Energy. She happened to be there. And so Baba ran to her. She was just a short distance from her, a few feet away, and ran to her. And she was just reading a letter. She didn't pay much attention. And then he went back and ran faster this time with mincing steps, and there were little wings, subtle wings on his ankles. And Baba was telling me indirectly through that here's Energy who loves me, and I run after her. And I've got to pull towards me. And that was the difference, and it was an important lesson. I realized that later on. Baba has to pull and push me. And he did indicate that in 1954, that I was a burden. He said, "Don't talk to me about music," when I mentioned something about music. "This is the first song I sang, and it brought the whole burden of the universe on my head." Well, that word burden was the key word there. It indicated that I was a burden, Baba, because I wasn't ready, and I was not attracted to Baba through love. It was that Baba drew me in order to get me rid of certain sanskars. He owed that to me, evidently, or he felt he owed it to me, and it was the only way to get me rid of them. So I wasn't ready. And others do come. Like Margaret Krask, he said to her, "Your love brought me here." And to me, he said, "My love brought you here." And I didn't even appreciate that, because I thought, well, gee, I spent all this money and borrowed money to go to India. But it was Baba's love and mercy. I know that now. That brought me to him and held me to him. And this is the most marvelous thing that could ever happen to anyone. And I just can't be impressed sufficiently with that. I just can hardly believe that I have that good fortune. And I keep telling myself that it's true. Because after all, God does not deceive. It's people that deceive one another and try to deceive God. In their ignorance, of course. Baba said in 1956, when he arrived in New York, to me and to Beryl Williams, separately, "I know everything. And this had to do with a similar failure on each one of our part. I realized that later. But anyway, in itself, it was very significant. I know everything, Baba's infinite knowledge. And to me and Darwin Shaw, he said separately, "Are you going with me all the way?" And by that, and he waved his arm above his head, referring to the flight across the United States with him. But also, were we going with Baba all the way to in this lifetime at least, and sticking to Baba's Dhamma and not chickening out? It hasn't been easy, I know for me. But anyway, here we are. Sometimes Baba is very humorous. I brought a shirt for Sarojam Vilu's boy. I believe his name is Dara. And that was a silly thing to do because Baba and his mother were traveling by air across the world, and they had luggage, a lot of luggage, and to give them an additional something, I could have mailed it. So Baba said, and I had some cufflinks. I said, "This is for Vilu's son." Baba said, "Vilu, Vilu, who is Vilu?" And Vilu is a close disciple of Baba, Sarojam Vilu. Then he said, Vilu. So he was just playing on this word name. And Adi, meanwhile, was very clumsy with the cufflinks, and he dropped them, picked them up clumsily. In other words, he was trying to show me that I should not ask him to do that. But I went ahead, and I just wasn't intelligent enough to understand the situation. Baba said to me in 1956, "Be worthy of the trust I have given you." I didn't know exactly what Baba was referring to because he hadn't given me any particular trust, but I did connect it somehow with the writing I was supposed to do. When Baba makes such statements, he refers to a number of things, but eventually, and this was about 14 years later, I realized what Baba meant. I'd meanwhile run into a problem, into trouble, because Baba meant the Avatar Meher Baba trust. Be worthy of the Avatar Meher Baba trust I have given you. And of course I had no way of knowing it, and I wasn't sending enough money. And Baba had stated in 1954 how much, 58, how much I was to give also, because he asked me how much money I spent on myself, and I wasn't spending much at that time. I was living very frugally, and I told him, well, he said, let's say about this much. And so then I was wondering how much to give to the fund. I felt I should. Adi told me more or less, but I sort of fell down there. And then eventually it came. I said to myself, did Baba ever say anything to that? Baba has covered my whole life, and did Baba ever say anything about that? And sure enough, this thought popped up. I remembered it. And that's what happens often. Baba has covered almost 100% of my life situations. It's really incredible. In 1962, when the men met with Baba by special grace, because we were not supposed to meet him, but since the women met with him, we also had a special meeting. He asked for it. And Baba brought up the subject of worship of God, and Dr. Kenmore and Charles Purdom spoke up against rituals. They were dead set against it. They said they had no meaning and detrimental. So then Baba said to me, did they not anything to say? I wasn't going to get involved in that. It didn't seem significant. I was surprised Baba brought up that subject suddenly. So I said, no, Baba. And that was Baba telling me that when the time came, as it has now, when I had to fulfill my contract with Baba, when he told me, take care of your mind, and I will take care of the heart, that I should not have anything to say to people in general, just talking, the habit of talking, and losing psychic energy and losing love because of just talking and getting involved in unnecessarily, and just a habit and a peculiarity, and very difficult to overcome. And Baba did try to bless me in 58 in this connection. Arut said, through Arut, Dana is very intelligent and silent. Arut couldn't seem to. He deliberately stuttered, meaning that this guy just can't shut his mouth. The mind just keeps racing along. And so a simple thing like that is between me and Baba. And it will have to be overcome by Baba's grace. And in 62 also Baba asked me twice, are you worried? And he named me. And are you happy? Now he didn't say, don't worry and be happy. He just put it in the form of a question because it was a blessing. But it was put in the form of a question because I would have to suffer somewhat. So that I understood that eventually. And Baba also said at that time, in enumerating the things I had done in connection with spreading Baba's literature, you do what you want. And I asked Elizabeth Patterson and Kitty Davy what exactly what that meant, you do what you want. And they said, we don't know. They may have known, but they wouldn't say. That several times I asked them such questions and they wouldn't say. Well, eventually I realized that Baba was saying that I'm stubborn mind, and I do what I want.